Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of my live tea tasting. I've got an exciting blend for you guys today, so I'm just gonna jump right in. Um, Sorry I missed you guys last week. I'm battling a bit of a cough and I'm not 100% over it, but I'm working on it a little bit. It's a lot better than it was last week, I'll tell you that much. So tonight's blend, continuing on with the tea source, I've accidentally been doing a series on the tea source oolongs, and this one is next on the list, and it smells absolutely amazing. Hey Kaylin, hey Claudia, welcome. Uh, Golden Dawn Oolong. This stuff smells incredible, and I am loving it already. Unlike last week, hey Ma, welcome. Unlike the last stream that I did, it was a Chinese oolong. This one is more of a Taiwanese oolong, which is my preference. It's got generally a much lighter taste, a more on the vegetal side rather than the earthy. And this one, the aroma itself is just incredible. I'm dying to dive right in. So let's not waste any more time. So if you take a look at this, it's a very, hey Teresa, welcome. It's a very yellowish green. Usually oolongs like this are more on the yellow side. They're bright, they're vibrant. This one is a little bit darker on the green side. It looks pretty. It looks pretty bright on the camera, but in person, it looks like a bit of a vegetal greenish kind of yellow instead of a yellow, more of a golden color. Oh, this has got like the quintessential oolong scent to it, which is kind of vegetal, kind of creamy, unmistakable. Whenever you get a good Taiwanese oolong, it's really, really sweet to the smell. This one smells like it's got a hint of honey in it. As you guys know, I don't sweeten my teas anymore. I used to, but to give it a more genuine flavor, I stopped doing it so I can review what it actually tastes like. So without further ado, because I can't hold it any longer, I'm going to go ahead and take my first sip. Oh, that is nice. I didn't aerate it as much. It's kind of hot. Mmm. It's a little bit on the smokier side. There's a bit of a there's a bit of smoke to it that what was this? Can you please remind me what tea this is? This is Golden Dawn Oolong from Tea Source, and it's just incredible. So I'm going to do the side-by-side comparison, and you're going to see what I always talk about with the Taiwanese oolongs versus the Chinese. Let me get a good one. So these little, I guess this one works. These little pellets, these little balled oolongs, tiny, tiny. You see? They kind of look just like one big chunk, but then they open up to reveal almost 3 times their original. Try not to break it. Their original shape. It opens up the leaf completely. Now I steep this heavily, which is different from over steeping. I'll explain in a moment. But I steep this heavily specifically so I can get the flavor out. Because as you saw, the leaf is really balled up into like a little pebble. So you have the option of doing multiple steeps. If you do it right, you can usually get 3 or 4, sometimes even 5 steeps out of one blend. And this kind of blend lasts you all day. So what you're supposed to do is steep it for about 3.5 minutes at maybe 200 degrees, a little bit higher than green tea. And the more you steep it, the more it's supposed to open up multiple times. However, I heavily steeped it, not over steeped it. I heavily steeped it at 212 degrees. And I did it for 5 minutes to get the full flavor out in one go. That way, it's a nice medium kind of flavor. These leaves can probably be steeped one more time at a lower temperature, probably for 5 minutes. But as you can see, the way that they're opened, this one wasn't completely open. I had to manually do it, so it's still not fully steeped, which means I could probably get one more steep out of it. I usually do that when I'm at work, and like I have one good cup. I steep it multiple times, and each time the flavor gets more and more bold. That's the beautiful thing about Taiwanese oolongs, is usually it is on the more expensive side, but you can get more tea out of it. Get more cups, I should say. And I love the way that it's got like a nice sweetness to it. It's very, very light. There's a good amount of like kind of smoke to it. Hey, Pops, welcome. There's a slight bit of smoke to it, which is not what brings in the sweetness. The sweetness is a natural occurring event during the oxidation process. The more you oxidate a tea, the more earthy it gets. Now, green teas are less oxidized than oolongs, and so you get like a sweet, grassy kind of flavor. But if you oxidize this slightly more and using different techniques, technically, you can get. And I love talking about the oxidation process for Taiwanese oolongs. So I'll heat that up. I'll bring that up in just a few moments. You probably have heard it 100 times, but I just love talking about it. But this is less oxidized than earthy black teas, but more oxidized than green teas. So you get like less of the vegetal, less of the salt, and you get something sweet in between. So that's what brings out the sweetness, is the actual oxidation process. And you'll see the difference between Taiwanese and Chinese oolongs. As in last time, you had like the brown long leaf. They came out already like in sticks or in like twists. Those are more on the earthy side. They are more robust, but not as strong, not as astringent as black teas can be. Of course, it's depending on where it comes from, because not all black teas are going to be astringent. But in the general sense, they tend to be more astringent than oolongs. Unless, of course, you oversteep it, then, it's not the tea's fault, it's human error. But I really love Taiwanese oolongs because there's a certain sweet honey nut kind of thing going on there, and you don't have to really put anything in it to bring that out. It's just naturally so. It's very light, so if you're looking for something in between, nothing that's too salty, green, it's never the tea's fault. No, well, that is true to an extent. Some places, they get their teas from like a bad crop, or if you're using the very, very least used Camellia sinensis cambodiosis, then that's when it's the tea's fault, because it's not really meant to be drunk. And if it's not human error in the steeping side, it's human error in the production side. Like some places, they purposefully sell cheap blends, or they sell really bad teas due to production error, they what they would usually do is set them aside for blending, so that they still sell the leaf, but you blend it in with so many other different ingredients that people just don't notice. So there are tricks to the trade to get around it, but I would never say it's never the tea's fault. I would say about 90% of the time it's human error. And then there are people who just like really bad teas, which is, I mean, to each their own. Who am I to judge, you know? Oh, that is so nice. And I love the texture of this. It's a bit of a heavier texture for a tea, but it's not like overpowering. There is a slight texture that's a little bit heavier than white teas. White teas, you usually get a little silky film over the palate, which is barely noticeable. This one is a little bit more noticeable. It's a little bit heavier, but it's sweet and it's nutty, so it's pleasant to just sit on your tongue and let it slow burn. You get this really nice kind of an effervescence when you breathe out. It's not like as heavy as a mint would be in the effervescence, but there's a kind of mist as you speak, a mist of flavor that just roams around on the tongue. It's really beautiful. Ooh, this is so hot. Again, I'd steep this at 212, so what are we gonna do? But I love how it's like a really nice honey kind of scent to it, and the flavor just sits there with a slight kind of metallic copper to it. It's barely noticeable, but it gives it a certain quality that pushes out the honey, and a little bit of that smokiness is due to that. And there's a kind of like, there's a little bit of sediment that's already settling at the bottom. You're probably not going to be able to see it. You're not going to be able to see it. There's a little bit of sediment that's settling at the bottom, and that's offering to the texture as well. As you drink it, you're going to feel a little bit of that mouthfeel sensation over your tongue. And it's really like, it's sitting there. And as I speak, I taste it over and over and over again. It's really, really nice. Definitely pleasant. And like something that I really appreciate, that I don't think I talk enough about when talking about an oolong, is the way that it's very breathable. And what I mean is, like, the aroma tends to take up a lot of space, and you can probably smell it from down the hall. It's a really beautiful scent, but when it's like up close, it's very aromatic. Like that slight honey vegetal kind of sensation to it. It's just really, really nice and pleasant, and it's kind of soothing to the senses. It's the kind of tea, like it is caffeinated, but it tends to relax me. And it's soothing. You never get like a really strong jolt of caffeine from it, because generally tea doesn't have as much caffeine as coffee. But what it does have, it fuels you slower, so you don't burn it out as quickly. That's due to L-theanine. Oh, I forgot to talk about the process. Don't worry, you guys have probably heard it 100 times, but I'm going to talk about it some more. So what they do with these little balls is they they take the leaf, they fire it, then they pull the leaf out one at a time, and they roll the leaf a little bit at a time. And then once you have a tiny, tiny ball, what they do is they bruise it a little bit. So it's not going to break the leaf, but it kind of opens up the internal walls and some of the stems and releases the juices. And then after they've brought it out, they roll it some more and they break it a little. I mean, they bruise it a little bit more. Roll it, bruise it, and then they throw it back in the fire and then stop the oxidation process. And the heat stops the juices from falling out so that it remains inside. So after that's done, they'll pull it out, do it again. Same process over and over. Oh, excuse me. Over and over and over again. Sometimes 8 times, 9 times, 10. I mean, it depends. Oh, excuse me. It depends on. Doggone it. Hold on. Got the hiccups. I hate it when that happens. Okay. Hopefully, it'll calm down. So they'll do it 7, 8, 9 times depending on what kind of flavor that they're going for, and then they'll trap as much of the juice on the outside while keeping the juice on the inside of the leaf, so that you have multiple layers of plant and plant juice, and you end up with like a juicy ball or a juicy pellet of tea. And as it opens up, it releases the outside juices on the leaf quickly, but also the juices on the inside of the leaf that didn't escape, that comes out slower. So you get this really nice balanced flavor, and that's so awesome. Oolong is hands down my favorite beautiful tea. So this one, it's more similar to a TheCommuni-Tea than it is to a jade oolong and a milk oolong. Like, those tend to be on the sweeter side. They tend to be more light, airy, and vegetal. This one is kind of on the smoky side. TheCommuni-Tea is a kind of tea that's an oolong. It's a Taiwanese oolong, but the way that they roast it and the way that they produce and oxidize it, and they get it just right so that it gets more flowery, usually tasting like an orchid kind of thing. And that's what you're getting from here. You get like the more flowery, honey nut, smoky, a little bit on the savory side, but not like earthy savory. And it's a really, really nice tea. Like, I just love the way that it feels going down. Like, I feel the warmth coming from my throat all the way down to my chest. And it feels like as I breathe, all that flavor is coming from down here back up. It's very aromatic, and like, it's in the air. I'm surrounded by oolong scent, and it's really interesting. Like, this is the kind of thing that I could drink all day. I'm not even lying. Like, I've done it before when I worked at Groupon. I would have my milk oolong and make 4 or 5 cups a day. And then just keep drinking it. It was just, it was amazing. And I would still do it to this day. Is this tea light? To taste? It's like, there are lighter teas out there, but this one is pretty light. It's not astringent. It's not heavy. It's not earthy. It's not too bold. It's honey sweet. It's pleasant enough. Like I don't want to say that it's bold. It's bold for the type of tea that it is. I'll say that much. It's not overpowering at all, but it's light compared to other teas. For say, black teas and pu'ers, definitely, hands down, this is a much lighter tea. As well as some green teas. Some green teas can be on the heavy side, like a gunpowder. Gunpowders tend to be heavy, smoky, salty, vegetal. This one is lighter than most gunpowder teas I've had, but it's around that same. Like there's not a huge difference in intensity between this oolong and a gunpowder. Other green teas like Dragonwell, it's comparable. It's up there as much as the green teas are, but it's certainly not an intense taste at all. Like this is just right. Like this would make for a good afternoon tea. Not the wake up in the morning, you need a kick in the face kind of a thing. It's the kind of tea that it fuels your day rather than gives you a jump start. Oh, yeah, that sounds about right. Oh, that's so good. All right, questions, comments, now's the time. If you have anything, just throw it at me. I'm going to, as I always do, I'm going to answer Teresa's question first. What would I pair this with? Given that it's bold, yeah, exactly. Given that its boldness is not too intense, but it's semi-intense. I would probably pair this with like a fish dish. Even, some of the Thai places that I've eaten at, I would pair this with a nice peanut sauce, with noodles, something that'll complement it very well. Having like the saltiness with the sweet smokiness of this tea will go very well. What else? It's definitely, I wouldn't pair it with any desserts, because, that would, I think adding too much sweetness would give it, would take away from the experience, I think that this will do very well just on its own. What else? Oh, I forgot to do the Thomas taste. I don't know. Let me see. Maybe I should skip it because right now I'm still congested a little bit. And if I try to do the Thomas taste, I don't know, chaos might ensue. Because you have to breathe out through your nose, and that might be a little bit messy. So I'm not gonna. Let's just skip it from now because nobody needs to see that or even visualize it like I'm doing right now. Oh. Yeah, Thomas taste is not a good idea this week, which is too bad because I love doing the Thomas taste with oolongs. Because they're very aromatic, it'll flow. How does tea taste iced? Good question. I really like iced oolongs. They tend to be more refreshing. However, I wouldn't, normally I would sweeten any kind of iced tea. Because I'm not big on green iced teas. I do more of the herbal blends or the black iced teas or stuff like that. And I would heavily sweeten them. But this one, because it's already so sweet, so naturally aromatic, and I've done this before with other oolongs, Taiwanese oolongs, I would definitely love to ice this one. using a specific technique. Oh, excuse me. Using a specific technique that I learned during my classes, where you would concentrate the hot tea, leave it for 5 minutes, pour it in a glass with ice already in it. Oh no, sorry. You would concentrate it and then pour it into a glass with like cool but not cold water, and then let it sit for a few minutes, and then pour that into ice and let the ice cool it down for the final temperature. And last time I did that, oh man, it was a huge difference. Like, this was a whole experiment where we iced teas in 3 different ways, and the icing of it in steps came out so much better. It was aromatic, it was nice, it was bright, clear, like there was very little sediment. Oh man, that's the only way I'll ice tea from now on. You know, it was just really good. And that was like, it was completely fresh too. Like the way that it's done, rather than brewing tea and letting it sit in the fridge overnight, that usually gets a bit of a harsh kind of flavor to it, but also when you do that for like a cold steam, because the first one was, I was talking about hot blending and then putting the hot in the fridge. There's also cold steeping. Cold steeping is when you just use either room temperature or already cold water, stick the tea in there, put it in the fridge overnight, then take it out. It's effective. It's really, really hard to mess up depending on the blend, but you still, like, if you're using a black tea, you should still like leave it in there for, gosh, what was it, like 20 minutes for black, and then you pull it out and let it steep cold overnight. Otherwise you'll wind up oversteeping that as well. But this step-by-step process, especially for the oolongs, really brought out some good flavors. So that's the only way that I'll steep iced tea in the summer from now on. It's just doing 1 glass at a time, just making it nice and fresh. Oh, it was really beautiful. I love that process. Oh wow, this is such a lovely flavor, and I love how it's maintaining that first flavor throughout. Like some teas, as time goes on and it cools off, the flavor will change. This one, the profile has remained the same the entire time. I mean, granted, right now I'm a little bit congested, so my taste buds might be a little bit impaired, but I don't think so, because like it's remaining faithful to its original blend as far as I can tell. There's no astringency. There's no bitterness. It's not getting heavier, even with the sediment drawing closer together, because less liquid means less room for it to move, which means you consume more as you drink it, and sometimes that sediment becomes really heavy on the palate. But I'm not getting that sensation. Again, maybe I'm just too congested to taste it, but honestly, it tastes the same all the way through. The only thing that I can say that's different is the texture. The texture is getting a little bit heavier. It's settling on my tongue, because once again the sediment has less room to move, so I'm consuming more of it at the same time. But like it's I would have to say the texture is the only thing that's changed throughout the session of drinking it, because right now it's noticeably heavier. But that doesn't take away from the taste at all, and at least not in my opinion. So, last call. Questions, comments, anything you want to talk about? Now's the time. I only have a little bit, maybe 2 slurps left. Okay, I did the Thomas test because I was I risked it because I felt a clearing. So I got more honey from it. Yay, thank you. I got more of a honey flavor from it. Granted, I took the opportunity as a spur of the moment thing, so I didn't get like a full. Can you even taste anything? Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, I have been blessed with really great taste buds. I've never been so sick and so congested that I couldn't taste anything, so I don't know what that's like, and I'm grateful for it. Like, I think I was born to taste tea. That's, I mean, that's part of the reason why I'm interested. Eyes rolling up. Hey, don't look at me, because this is my calling. What can I say? I lied. One more. I got one more slurp. So, last call. Questions, comments, anything you want to talk about? Now's the time, and down the hatch. Cheers. Oh, that was so good. Thank you, everyone, for joining me tonight. This has been an incredible experience. I love tasting Taiwanese oolongs for you guys because it's one of my personal favorites. But I will put the link in the description. So if you want to try it for yourself, which I highly recommend, give it a shot. This stuff is incredible. Until next time, have a wonderful weekend, a great week, and I'll see you later. Bye.